In this video we'll be looking at photographing swallows in flight using the OM1 and the 150 to 400mm F4.5 lens. So in this video we're looking at photographing swallows. I'm at a location on the Suffolk coast and it's a well-known location for photographing swallows. What I'm going to be doing today is using the 150 to 400mm with the OM1. Fortunately, I persuaded my wife to let me buy this. A lot of money, but it's a cracking lens, and it's got the built-in 1.4 converter. Not that I'm going to need it at this location. I'm going to be photographing from the car. I'm in a car park, and the car's parked behind the camera over there. And what I'm going to be trying to do is to actually photograph them on these posts and these wires here. Okay, there's behind where I'm parked, there's an old disused World War II bunker, and they obviously thought perhaps the Germans might invade this part of the coast during the war, and they built these concrete sort of defence bunkers. The swallows nest there every year. They've been coming back here for many years, and it's a good location because you can park up in the car and use the car as a hide. What happens is the swallows will be flying in and about all around here, but what I'm trying to look for is to get a bird perched up on the post, which they often do, or on the wires. What I'll do is I'll rest a beanbag over the car door, and with a 100 to 400 I'm going to get a really nice shot from there. But what I really want to do is to get them as they're flying off there. So I'll be using Pro Capture, and I'll have this running sort of using SH2 on Pro Capture, and as soon as it flies I'll press the shutter button. I'll get a series of pictures as it's flying off. So I'm parked up and got everything set up, the camera and lens on the beanbag, window wound down, and it's just a case really of waiting for the swallows to land on the posts. I've had a few shots already this morning. They've sat there quite nicely, and I've got some nice shots. I'm going to try doing some video as well this morning. The big advantage of the OM1 is that I can shoot in 4K 60 frames a second video. And I'll slow that down to half speed in post-production. It gives a very smooth, natural looking effect. But really what I want to be doing is actually getting them as they actually fly off, and for that Pro Capture is the answer. There's actually one there now. It's gone. Yeah, it looks like I got that one, so that's a bit of luck. So early on, it's best to come early in the morning because the lights obviously comes up in the east. This area, this fence and post is bathed in lovely lighting. Later on in the day it gets a little bit more busy. You get dog walkers and people walk along the coast and that sort of thing. Although swallows don't take any note of it, the car park can get a bit busy. So it's best to come early in the morning. I have actually in the past got out of the car and just put a stool down and just photographed them. Swallows don't take any notice whatsoever of humans. They just sort of carry on as regardless. But hopefully should get some nice pictures this morning. So now I'm going to show a short video clip and some stills taken at the location. I didn't have long to wait for the birds to perform, so I had plenty of opportunities to take both stills as well as video. The video clip was shot at 4K 60 frames per second. I did take straight portrait shots of the swallows on both the post and the wire, and although this is quite a nice way to photograph them, it was mainly the action shots as the bird took flight that I was really after. This shot was taken using the continual autofocus of Pro Capture SH2, and at 50 frames per second this enabled me to get a whole sequence of shots as it flew from the wire. When framing up a shot for Pro Capture, it's important not to crop too tightly with your composition. Although this is an OK shot, the framing on this image would not allow enough space for the swallow to fly into. With this shot, which is the full frame of the previous image, I have zoomed back to enable the bird to have more space in the composition. Unfortunately, they don't always fly in the space you want them to, but on this occasion it did. You can then crop into the image in post-production to get a better framing. Although I was there mainly for the swallows, there were opportunities to photograph sand martins as well. One problem that I did have was the wind direction. Birds like to take off into the wind, and the wind was coming towards me, so I had lots of occasions where initially the bird would be facing me as it was preening or resting, but then, when it wanted to take off, it would turn away facing the opposite direction. Then all I would get would be a back view of the bird as it flew away. Because the forecast was for a very hot day in the high 20s, and also because there had been no rain for 4 days, I decided to try a different approach. So although I wanted to photograph them up on the post, and I've got some nice shots there already, what I've actually done is brought about 3 or 4 of these cartons of water along there, and there's a depression here, and I've filled it up with water. There hasn't been any rain for about 4 days now, and it's really going to be a hot day today. And literally within 5 minutes of making this little pool there, I've had swallows, linnets, juvenile wagtails coming down here. The swallows are coming down there and getting the mud from around the edge there, and it's been drawing a lot of birds in there. I always carry a few cartons of water with me because you never know in the car whether you're going to have this sort of opportunity, and I didn't really think it was going to work that well, to be honest. But it certainly has drawn a lot of birds down here, and when they come to this bit, the chances are there's even more chance of them going up there on the post. So always carry some water with you. It can really produce some quite interesting pictures, particularly in conditions like this. So one thing you have to be prepared to do when you're doing bird photography or natural history photography is to be able to adapt. And putting the water for the puddle was a bit of an afterthought. When I was coming out this morning, I thought, well, I'll just put a few cartons of water in the back. You never know, it might work, might be a good draw for them. I was intending to photograph birds on the post and on the wire fence and that sort of thing. I haven't taken many pictures like that today, but all the pictures have been down at the puddle. So you have to be able to change things around. And it really has been very successful because there's been lots of birds coming down there and got some quite good shots. So it's been a productive morning. I'll carry on and see what we get. So I'm going to start off showing some stills and video of the swallows coming down to this puddle. And basically that's all it was. It was about sort of 4 or 5 cartons of water tipped into this depression. And because there'd been no rain or anything for about 4 or 5 days, there was no water about. So as soon as you poured water down, it was a big draw for the birds, and literally I was getting 7 or 8 down at a time. There was grey wagtails, linnets as well coming down quite regularly. And it shot at 4K 60 frames a second. The advantage of that is that I can slow it down to half speed in post-production, and it will give a very smooth effect, which I find quite attractive. So sometimes I was using the zoom. The advantage of using the zoom was that I could actually sort of get more or less the whole puddle in. But then at times I decided that it would be nice to actually zoom in on just one bird, and that's what I'm doing here with this one there, going in a lot tighter with zoom and getting the reflection of this swallow in the puddle. I was lucky with the light. It was very, very sunny that morning, and it did give some nice reflections in the water. You can also, looking at the stills now, do portrait shots. This one here, it got the mud in its beak. You can see it collected the mud, and it's also got a bit of straw or something like that that's relining the nest with. It was a time of year where they're just starting their second brood. So, giving them a chance to actually have some mud was a good opportunity. But there were other birds coming down. It wasn't just the swallows. There was linnets coming down. And using Pro Capture, I could then get a series of shots as they started to take off or get ready to take off in flight. With SH2 and Pro Capture, you get 50 frames a second, and it makes doing pictures like this as birds take off really very, very easy indeed. But there are other birds coming down, as I said. You've got grey wagtails. I think this one was a juvenile one. Hadn't really got its proper feathers and that sort of thing, and it was coming down for a drink and bathe, which gave nice opportunities. This was next shot was one where it actually took off, so I got it in flight. But on one occasion there was one up the far end of the puddle there, and a swallow came in. You can see here there's a little bit of interaction there, and that's something you always have to be looking for, but you need fast reactions. If you haven't got fast reactions, use Pro Capture, which is what I do. So here, sort of just looking, we've got sort of just a portrait shot. Okay, so using Pro Capture, I can actually then wait for it to fly. So half press the shutter button, Pro Capture's running, and then as soon as I see the action, I fully press the shutter button, but it enables me to get, I have it set so it's 25 frames pre-shutter and 10 after. So 35 frames all told. Means you're going to end up with a lot of pictures, but you get that really perfect shot where you've got lovely sort of wing position and things like that. So in a lot of my videos I go on about Pro Capture, and initially when I changed to Olympus about 3 years ago, Pro Capture wasn't the reason I changed to Olympus, it was the weight. I used Canon for 27 years, good system, but the weight was the problem. It just wasn't really sort of viable at my age to actually cart around heavy DSLR gear any longer. So the main reason I changed to Olympus was because of the weight. I'd heard about Pro Capture. I knew roughly what it was before I changed. And my opinion was that, all right, I've heard about it, I know what it does. It sounds pretty good, but I mean, I've managed for a number of years without it. Got away quite happily without using it. I'll probably use it a few times, but wow, I was wrong there. Once you start using it, it enables you to do pictures that you would only really dream about doing. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll be notified of future uploads. And thanks for watching.